I'm just back from a rainy week in Devon, and during the time I did this little holiday journal to record some of the sights and sounds that we saw. And I thought it might be quite fun just to show you what equipment I took and some of the techniques I used. So first of all, I've got this little concertina sketchbook. Look, there you go. And it's homemade, really quick to do. And I put some mixed media paper from Hannah Muller in it, and I sort of guesstimated how many pages I might use during the week to sort out the length. If you want to see how it's done, I'll share a link to the film. Let me take you through it first, and then I'll just show you some of the techniques. Usually on my first page, I often sketch the materials I've taken with me, so it's usually I don't know, a picture of a couple of pens and a bit of watercolour. But we had friends staying with us while we were down there, and we played this game called Mulkey. I don't know if that's how you say it. It's a Finnish game, and you've got little sticks and things. It's on the beach, and actually I thought that would be quite fun to do. So this is a line and wash. I got knocked out. Oh, never mind. It really was sunshine and showers. So this was the view opposite the house we were staying in. And it was a really nice house with this sort of veranda and everything. But what upset me, it had loads of apple trees in the front, and its garden was really steep, and all the apples down here were just rotting on the ground, and it seemed such a shame. We were staying in a place called Branscombe, which is down on the, well, it's sort of East Devon, but down on the coast, and it has a thatched forge, which is now owned by the National Trust. And that's amazing. How has it not gone up in flames? Because it really is a forge. There's a huge fire, and there's a blacksmith pounding away at horseshoes and things like that. Apparently it's 400 years old. We went in there on a rainy Sunday afternoon, and I have to say, the blacksmith did look a bit fed up. He hadn't got the fire going, and he was obviously doing some paperwork. He was selling a set of these wonderful skewers. I mean, they're more like swords and skewers. I felt sorry for him, so I bought a set. I shall look forward to having, I don't know, kebabs of some description, or toasting marshmallows over a bonfire, and that's just the handle of them. And I think he was so pleased someone had actually bought something that he gave me a postcard too, so pop that in there. And the next day the sun came out, hoorah! And we walked from Branscombe, which is sort of down here, up over the cliffs to Beer, which has a very, very good fish and chip shop. And this is when I realised I wasn't quite as unfit as I thought I was, because I had time to sit at the top of the cliffs and do this really quick sketch of the view down along the beach. This is Sidmouth up here, while my poor friends walked up and then recovered at the top. But there was a lot of huffing and puffing. So I realised maybe I was a little bit more sprightly than I thought. On the same walk, as you go over the cliff, there's this amazing lookout tower, which used to be, I think, a Coast Guard lookout tower. I know it looks a bit sort of prison-like, but it isn't. And it had been derelict for years, and we used to walk past it, and I dreamt of having a studio up here, because it's almost got 360-degree windows, and I thought the light would be amazing, and you'd see all the storms coming in off the sea. But it's been bought and done up into this amazing sort of holiday cottage that costs thousands and thousands a week. So my hopes have been dashed. And in Beer, got lovely mackerel trawlers and crabbing boats all pulled up onto the beach. Very similar sketch to the one before, but this is going back. These are called the Hocken Cliffs, and the coast path, which is actually part of the Southwest Coast Path, made famous by the book The Salt Path, goes along here. We had some very, very stormy days, and what I find fascinating is all the clay washes out and the sea becomes orange as the storm recedes. So there's a couple there with some very orange sea and stormy skies. We were lucky enough to have a visit to the UK Wild Otter Trust. It's not open to the public, but I've done a couple of paintings for them to auction off over the last couple of years because I love otters and they are quite a persecuted animal, and certainly they are threatened by all the traffic on the road, and they do an amazing job. And I met Tolga, and Tolga is a resident otter. All the other otters there are to be rehabilitated and released, and they take otters from all over the country. It's far, far north of Scotland. But Tolga has got too used to humans and would not survive in the wild. He's lost his fear of humans. So I had a lovely time playing with him. He loves a hose pipe and he loves being squirted with water. So I spent a long time enriching his afternoon. This actually wasn't painted in situ. This was later. I loved this tractor. It was down on the beach at Beer. It's used for hauling the boats in and out. And I rather like the seagull that very cooperatively sat on its roof. And then we visited a stately home called Killerton, but it was jolly miserable and really quite cold, and I felt that I couldn't ask everyone to wait for me while I was doing sketching, so I picked up this wonderful ginkgo leaf from a beautiful tree that was by the chapel in the grounds, and just did that quick little sketch to remind me of Killerton. And then on my final day, at this point my sister was staying with us. We had people coming and going, which was lovely. We did a final visit down to the beach just as the sun was setting. It was starting to get dusk and there were beautiful peachy clouds, another storm coming, but all the pink was reflected in the sea. So I did that as the last evening. So that's my little book, which is just packed full of memories, so many more memories than if I had just taken photos on the phone and flicked through them. And that's why I love sitting and sketching on holiday, because it just enriches everything that's going on in your head and you can make yourself little notes. Let me show you what I took. Usually, I would say pack light. You are not a donkey. You do not need to carry loads of things. And the more you try and take, the less likely you are to do any sketching. So I used one of these bags for life. This is from Sainsbury's. I think you put your bananas in it. Really useful for your sketch kit. I took a little set of watercolours. This one's from Viviva, and that's your mixing palette. So they're just ordinary watercolours, but that's a really nice set. It's actually in a cork palette, so it's very light, and I love it. The very important kitchen towel. I took a water brush, none of my smart brushes, because I would have ended up leaving there. I took these Stabilo 88 pens, one in brown, one in black. I took a few fine liners, spray bottle, a couple of grey Tombow pens. So these are brush pens, brush one end, bullet nib the other. Really super useful, totally water soluble, whereas these are waterproof, these are water resistant, these are water soluble. Very important clip. One of those pictures down on the beach, I actually ended up having, it was so windy, I had to put really big pebbles on both ends of my concertina sketchbook to stop it blowing away. Oh, and a Pritt stick. But in addition to those, and I don't usually do this, but I just bought these before I went on holiday. I took this set of tempera sticks. Now this is a kid's supply. These sticks, if you haven't seen them, are basically paint in a stick, like a glue stick. This is all paint. And I just started playing with them before we went away. And I thought, oh, I like those. I'll give those a go. I wonder if I could sit on the beach painting with these. They dry really quickly and you don't end up with a soggy sketchbook to carry home. Really like those. So that was my equipment. Let me show you some of the techniques. I've just got some scraps here. and wash, I just use a waterproof pen, a fine liner, and do my drawing. Quite often use a continuous line, so if I was drawing those mulky sort of sticks, it's a bit like Skittles but with scoring, I might just do a sort of fairly continuous line, you know, like this, and then obviously I put the numbers in or whatever. And then when I'm happy with my drawing, it's a case of adding colour. I'm not very literal with my colours. The joy of being on holiday is actually you've probably not got the right colours and you have to improvise, but necessity is the mother of invention, and maybe you will actually end up with some nicer effects and more interesting colour combinations than if you were trying to get exactly the right colour or whatever. So line and wash is a really, really quick way of working, and I like that because I don't want to pack off all the people who I'm on holiday with by spending ages and being too precious. I want to capture the moment. This one I did using a Stabilo 0.88 pen. Why I love this pen, let's maybe just, I don't know, we'll just do a drawing of the pen. There we go. There's the lid. We've got the pen. And the end. Why I love this pen is that you can get the wash. Oh gosh, if my brush was clean, you would be able to see this. There we go. You get the wash and the line from the same pen. And what I was saying about not being a donkey, that means I could literally just carry the brush and the pen, the water brush and the pen, and I'd be able to do line and wash. So that's all the pen and the brush, because the line, the ink actually runs. You can see I've managed to lose the lid here. It runs in water, but you still keep the line. What you can do, I'm just going to find something waterproof, is actually scribble on something that doesn't absorb and then pick up and paint with that ink as well, which can be really nice if you want to add it, or you can wait till it's dry and then add more ink over the top. You can work in layers, and it's just a really nice way of working. So that's exactly what I did here. I'm looking at these trees and I can see some pink in them, and I think what I might have done is use the brush bit of my Tombow pen and say that's a tree, and then you put the water over the top, and it's totally water soluble, and it's great for getting a larger area and some nice watercolour effects. So if I was doing a tree line, I could literally do something like that, scribble, scribble, and then just come back, soften off the edges and create some beautiful, well, maybe not beautiful, but watercolour trees very quickly and very simply. And again, for me, when I'm on holiday, it is about speed a lot of the time, because I'm conscious I'm with other people and it's not fair, let's say, to make them wait while I'm faffing around painting my masterpiece or not. So this pen is really useful, and then because it's got the bullet nib, I mean, if you wanted to put in details, you've got a more detailed pen at the end that you can use, as well as that lovely broad nib. So let's turn over. What else did... Oh yes, well you can probably see here, that's totally what I did with this, was using the Stabilo 88 for the actual building. This is the thatched forge, and then for those trees in the background using some of those grey tombos. This was more detailed, so I just used that Stabilo. Here we've got classic line and wash. I did the line first because if you've done that line, if it then rains or your friends catch their breath or whatever it is, then you've got the details there. And again, you know, say I was looking at these cliffs, I have very much done a continuous line because it's really quick. And yes, it's a mess, but as soon as you add a bit of watercolour, it brings it to life. So, you know, that might be the woods up the side of the cliffs, and then we've got the distant horizon, and we've got all those lovely hedgerows that Devon is just known for, and the fields coming down. And you could do something like that, add a little bit of watercolour, and in a few minutes you've got the start of your scene. If you take a photo as well, you can always finish it off at home. I could have done that and then added the watercolour and we'd have been good to go. So this was with the Stabilo 88 again. This is classic pen and wash. Classic pen and wash. And then this was the one that I did down on the beach. Oh no, actually, was it? Well, both of them. When I had to weight it down with big rocks both sides, it was blowing so much. And these are done with these tempera sticks. So let me just give you a quick view of it. This is watercolour paper. They're really creamy and they layer over each other and they blend. So you can smoosh it a bit and blend it like that. They are water soluble. They're not the most water soluble thing in the world, but you can go over them and get some of that colour to move. And what I started doing while I was down there, because my set didn't have a grey in it, and it was pretty grey down in Devon, I started using the Tombow pens over the top. They don't go well over wet, but as soon as that dries, let's make that into a cloud or something like that. So, you know, there were a lot of clouds and I could smoosh that up and make lovely studies of the cloudy, stormy sky. I can always go back in and darken this down. What's nice, you can then also work in your tempera sticks on the damp surface, and that can be nice to get some colour into those clouds. You can sort out your horizons, and say like here I've got the cliffs coming down. You can use the bullet point nib or the bullet end to just put in some detail, and you might have, you know, rocks here or whatever, and you can put in those details. And these two media together seem to work really well. And that's what I was saying about necessity is the mother of invention. This is all I had, so I had to use it, and I really like those two media together. Didn't have the right colours, but does that matter? You know, you can improvise and maybe you get a bit more of the spirit of the place by improvising, rather than having the most wonderful things in the world to your hand. So that is exactly how I did this down on the beach. And then, well, obviously it's a postcard. So Tolga, who was just so gorgeous. I just used the brown Stay Below 88, just in the same way as I showed you with the black. Let's make the end a bit darker. And the brown just dissolves out to make this lovely warm sort of wash, so you can do that. And it's really lovely for any sort of rustic type subjects, nice for natural nature ones. So if you need a dense area, his eyes, obviously you can do a nice little ottery eye, but you can still go over it and smoosh it round and just make it a bit more painterly than it might be otherwise. Classic line and wash. I'd like to use the writing as well. Here I did it vertically. I just think so it's part of the composition. I wanted it to feel like that was the cliffs going up. So it's nice to think about how much writing you want with this. Is it a diary? Is it a journal? Is it a sketchbook with a few notes? Oof, that's up to you. This Chaderton page I did a little bit differently because I picked my ginkgo leaf. I really wish I'd picked a few more of those. And I did this when I got home. I put a wash down and sprinkled in some salt, and you can see these lovely marks that I've got there. I then used my waterproof fine liners, these ones, classic fine liners, to draw the leaves, and then just touched up the colour in places. So this was wash, line, wash. And then that was my final down on the beach. And again, these are my tempera sticks. And they seem to go really nicely over the watercolour paper to get a little bit of sort of sparkle and movement in the water. Or say here, it's a shingle beach. And because it skips places, because of the texture of the watercolour paper, or the paper, it's a cold press, then you get really nice texture, and I think that worked really well. So that was a very quick swizz through some ideas and techniques that I used to create this little holiday journal. I hope it's shown you that you don't have to have all the equipment and an easel and a beret and all that sort of stuff. In very short time, you can capture a little bit of what's going on around you and capture those gorgeous memories, so that when you look back, I remember the walk down here and how fresh and windy it was, and the pink of that sea, and that really warms my heart because we had such a lovely time. I hope that has maybe inspired you to have a go at creating your own holiday story next time you're away.